Just a minute. Yeah. Welcome back, friends. Very good morning. So last class we have discussed modifiers, right? Last class we have discussed about the modifiers. So we have seen that modifiers, we have two types of modifiers. We have one is a axis modifier and second is the one second. Where is that? Yes. One is the axis modifier, second is the non-axis modifiers. As we discussed, axis modifiers, we have four types are there, and non-axis modifiers, we have 8 types are there. Is all axis, non-axis will be given to the classes, given for the variables, given for the methods prefixed to everywhere. So, but not all 4 axes, not all 8 non-axis will be given to class, variables and methods. Very few. What are that few we have discussed here? Okay. For class axis modifier, only these 2 are there. For method supported axis modifier, these 4 are there. For variable supported axis modifiers, we have these 4 are there. And supported non-axis to the classes and methods and variables. These are things. This is what we have discussed in the last class. And we have detailedly explained about what is the scope of the public default classes and all the access modifier to the methods and all access modifiers to the variables we completed. And also we completed the scope of that class non-access modifiers also completed. The only pending thing are method level non-access modifiers, variable level non-access modifiers are present to continue, right? So before talking about method level, variable level non-access modifiers, so we'll talk about variable types and data types today, and tomorrow we'll talk about Java inheritance types. Then after we'll come to discuss on this variable level, method level, non-access modifiers. Now, today the concept is variable types and data types and its default values. Friends, let's talk about variable types. There are basically 2 types of variables are there in Java. Those are called primitive variables or non-primitive or reference. One is primitive variable, second one is non-primitive or reference variable. Like these 2 types of variables are there in Java. Okay, so let me show you what is a primitive variable example, non-primitive. Let me show you the difference. Yes. Yeah. Let me create one new class called variable types. Friends, so in a class we define a variable, right? So how we define inside the class? Int x equals to some 100, where x is called primitive variable. Okay. Where x is called primitive variable. Any type of object storing into a variable, that kind of variable is called primitive variable. Suppose I'm giving character some ch equals single quote some a, where a is a character object is storing into a variable ch, where ch is called primitive variable. Any type of object storing into a variable is called as a primitive variable. Understanding? Yes. Now, friends, inside the class, any properties, how would you access? Inside the class properties, behaviors, how am I accessing? Come on. How can I
By
access the?
creating object.
By getting an object in a main method. So let's have a main method. Just type the main control space. So main method structure comes inside the main method. We create an object for this class. How we create? New keyword, variable type of, this is called object, and storing into one variable obj. Oh, sorry. Is of type variable type class type. Yes, with this reference of variable only we are accessing that obj dot x. Friends, here obj is called as a class reference variable. Here obj is called class reference variables. Here this is a class object storing into one reference variable. Obj is of type variable type. Any class object is called as a non-primitive or reference variable. Okay? So any type of object storing into normal variable is called as a primitive variable. Storing the class objects into a variable, this type of variable is called reference variable. This is a class reference variable or not? Okay, now yes. So this is called primitive. This is called a reference variable. Everyone got the difference, right? Any class object, this reference variable is called as a class reference variable. Okay, na? Any type of object, integer object, float object, string object, character object, any object storing into a normal x variable is called as a primitive variable. Class object storing into variable is called reference variable. Got the difference now? Yes. Now, okay. These two types, again, this primitive and reference type, these two are furtherly divided into three types based on the position of declaration and behavior. Based on the position you declare and the behavior of that variables, that is classified into three types. Again, these two are classified into three types based on the declaration behavior. Okay, what are the three positions? Instance variable, static variable, and local variable. Instance variable, static variable, local variable. So let's try to demonstrate primitive variable. How can I define in these three positions? A non-primitive or reference, this can be defined only in these two positions, not an instance, static and local. But primitive variable in these three positions we will define, and non-primitive or reference can be defined only in these two positions. First, let's talk primitive variable in these three positions. Yes. So friends, everyone know this position this is called as a any type of object storing the variable is called primitive variable. Yes. Now we are talking this primitive variable can define an instance and static and local. Yes, defining the variable inside the class, outside the method. See, this variable is inside the class or not? Outside the method or not? Yes, this primitive variable position is called instance variable, or we can call instance global variable, or we can also call non-static variable. Why I'm calling non-static variable means I never give static keyword prefix to the variable. Then we can also call as a non-static variable, or I can call instance global variable, or I can call as an instance variable. Anything we can call. Inside the class, outside the method. Defining this kind of variable is called instance variable. And we can also call any of these names also. Next, primitive variable defined in a static position. VMware. So prefix to the variable giving a static keyword, that variable, that primitive variable. The C name is a primitive. So prefix having a static keyword. So this is called variable, or we can also call as static global. Anything we can call. So the variable, the primitive variable which don't have static keyword, that's called as an instance variable. The primitive variable which is having static keyword, that's called as a static variable. These two are defined inside the class, outside the method. How can we differentiate? Means having static is a static variable, static primitive. Not having static means instance primitive we call. Understanding? Next is the primitive variable in a locally how we define. Local variable, primitive variable defining in a local, which means the variable which is defined inside a method is called as a local variable. Suppose I have a method in a class. Inside the method, the variable is declared. This is called local variable. If any variable is defined inside the method, this is called local variable. Got the difference, friends? Instance, static, local positions. Is everyone clear?
Yes,
The
sir.
primitive in these three positions. Okay. Now,
Yes, sir.
next, when to go with the instance variable declaration, when to go with static variable declaration. The difference is, without static is called as an instance variable. With the static keyword is called as a static variable. Then when to go instance, when to go with static variable means that. For example, so we have 100 employees. All 100 employees having a unique employee ID or not?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
So every employee having unique employee ID. So every 100 employees, 100 variables I will create to store the 100 employee IDs as instance variable. So 100 employees are the 100 unique employees means I go in that situation all 100 variables to store 100 unique employees as an instance variables. 100 instance variables I declare. Next, when to go with static means, friends, all 100 employees working on the same company called VMware. Do I need to create 100 different variables to store the same company name? Means not required. When the data is commonly being used, that kind of data you view as a static variable. 100 employees are working in the same company, not required 100 static variables. One variable is required, make that as a static. When the data is commonly being used, then you go variable type as a static variable declaration. One more example. We all are having a bank account in ICICI. As per our financial status, someone will deposit 100 rupees every month, someone 500, someone is 1 lakh, someone is 10,000, like this. They are depositing the money in the bank. How much you deposit doesn't matter. But end of the month, everyone is eligible to the rate of interest 8.5. Is a common factor for every customer or not? Yes. The data is the rate of interest is commonly used for every customer to apply the rate of interest 8.5. So where data is commonly being used, that kind of data we declare as a static variable. When the data is commonly being used, that data you declare as a static variable. We're not using commonly means, then go with the instance variable declaration. Now you got different statements. When to go with instance declaration, when to go with static declaration. Is everyone clear?
Clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, next, memory access scope. Next, we'll talk about accessibility, where I can access instance variables, static variables, and local variables. Friends, coming to the point, instance and static variables I can access anywhere in the program. I can access here in this method, I can access in this method, in another class methods, anywhere I can access instance and static variables if these are giving as a public use. The same on outside package, anywhere I can access. Okay, na? Anywhere I can access. But local variables, the scope is it can access only within this method premises only. So local variables can access only within this method premises only. It can't be accessed here. It can't be accessed anywhere. Where we declare in this method, access only within this method. That's the scope of the local variable. Okay, now next, memory perspective. So for instance variable, memory will be allocated for how many times you're calling the instance variable x. 10 times you're calling the 10 times memory is allocated for instance variable. Okay, and coming to the static variable 10 times you are calling the, but memory allocates only once. For static variables, memory allocates once in a program execution, that which will shares that memory across how many times you call this static variable. 100 times I'm calling CNAME, one time only in a static execution, the CNAME static variable memory will allocate for the first time. So 99 times I am calling the same CNAME means it will reuse that memory. It will never create 99 memory allocations. Understanding? Got it, friends? It's clear, everyone? For static variables, Memory allocates only once. And which shares the memory, like how many times you call this static variable, that many times memory sharing instead of creating remaining memories. So coming to the local variable memory declaration, when the control comes inside the M1 method block only, the local variable memory is going to be allocated, and when the control comes out from this method, memory will be deallocated for the local variable. Understanding, friends? Okay, now? Yeah. Now, let me access the instance static local variables. Yeah. Friends, if I want to access this instance variable, how we access? Through class referencer variable. Everyone know that. And accessing the static variables are not with the class reference, friends. If you try to access with the class referencer, we are getting some warning. No error, but simple getting the warning. What is saying that? The static field variable type dot cname should be accessed in static way, not through class reference. Through class name we have to access. Okay now? What is the class name, friends? What is the class name? Variable types dot cname.
CNAME.
Static variables will access through class name, or directly also we can access. Directly static variable we can access, or indirectly the class name also we can access. See, any error, any warning is coming now? No. Understanding, friends? So static variables can access either directly or indirectly with a class name dot. We can call static variables. Now local variables can I access here. Can I access local variables here? Come on.
No.
No,
No.
cannot.
No.
We cannot see. Even with class reference obj dot, is y is coming? No. Even with class name, any y is coming? No. Can I call y
No.
directly? No. We cannot call
No.
local variables outside. Where you define, there itself only we will call that. Itself only we can access. Here only I can access in this method. Got it, friends? Is everyone clear?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Fine. Next, friends. Now tell me, this instance variable, static variable, anywhere I can access? Yes or no? Anywhere I can access? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
But local variable, where we can access? Only within this
With
method. Is it? Yes. Now, this instance static I can use here or not? I can call this instance static in this method M1 or not?
Can
Yes.
can
Yes, I can. Now see, friends, I was defining one more method. It's static void M2. Friends, tell me, main is an instance method or static method?
Static.
Static. Where M2 is an instance method or static method?
Static.
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 And M1 is instance or static method?
Instant.
Instant.
Instance. Because no static keyword is there means this method is instance method. Where static keyword is there means it's a static method. Even variables also, see, friends, without having static keyword, this is called instance variable. With the static keyword, this is called as a static variable. Okay, now fine. Now, if you understood this concept, now you would say the answer for this M2 static method. Now tell me, inside the M2 static method, how I access the instance variables?
Through object. Class variable.
Through class object. Friends, can I use this class reference here? This class reference here, can I use here?
Yes.
Okay, before you set the answer, I would like to clarify something. Friends, instance variable color is what, friends?
Everywhere.
Instance variable color, blue color, right? What is the color of static variable?
Gray.
Green, blue only. I think if people are different resolutions, it's green, I guess. Okay, this is a blue. Instance is X, a blue color, and static variable CNAME also blue color. And tell me, what is the color of local variable?
Pink.
Maybe gray.
Brown. Yeah. Some systems is showing pink, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, it is a brown color. Some difference is there, right, friends? Instance and static are same color, and local variable color is different, right, friends? Okay. Now, even I am creating the class reference variable. The color is what same like as a local variable. The class reference also same color, right? So this is local to this method only.
Very good.
I cannot use this here, friends. Here, obj dot. Is there anything is coming? No, right?
Yes.
No.
No
So
coming in.
class object created inside the method means the class reference variable I can use only within this method only. I can't use here. So we have to create an object. Variable types obj equals. So instance variable will be called with the class reference everyone said. Yes, obj dot x. Now tell me, inside the M2 static method, how I access the static variable? Come on.
Through class.
This
Through
M2
class
static
name.
method.
Through
Yes,
classroom.
either
Using
directly
class.
or indirectly the
Class name.
class name. Variable types dot c name. Okay, na? Next. Friends, I can also access instance and static variables inside the M1 instance method. Yes or no? Yes, right?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
How can I access in here means, friends, inside the M1 instance method, instance variables will access directly. No class reference here. See, friends, direct access or not? But inside the
Yes.
static, instance variables cannot access directly. Getting error, right?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, inside the instance method, instance variables can access directly. Will access directly. Now coming to the inside the instance method, how I access static variable means same scenario. Can access directly or indirectly with the
Class name.
dot. This is common, this one, right? This is common in instance method and static method. The only difference is you see that, right? Now, one second. Now, let me, for understanding, let me give small notes for you. Static method. Instance family, which means instance variable or methods. Okay. Next is what?
Static.
Now tell me, friends, inside the static method, how I access the instance family, which means either instance variables, instance methods. How can I access inside the static method? Come on.
Creating an object.
Yes. Creating the class. Now, coming to the instance method, how can I access the instance variables and instance method?
Directly.
Or indirectly.
No, indirectly only. Okay, indirectly means yes, we can. Yes, here. Suppose what you're saying that you are saying with class name.
Yes.
Experience not like this. You have to use this keyword. You have to use this keyword.
Sir,
Indirectly
one
means we
doubt,
can use
sir.
this. I will tell that. Yes.
The class object can we use in M2 and main also the same class object we can use, sir? OBJ.
That is, I I will how to use that in reference type. I will tell that. Now we are talking about
Okay.
not a reference type. We're talking as a primitive type, right? All in 3 positions. I didn't talk about reference type in 2 positions, right? When we talk that, you'll be get clarification on that. Okay, now just a 5 minutes. That doubt will clarify. Yeah. Now tell me, friends, inside the in static method, how can I access the static variables and static methods? Come on.
Through class name.
Directly or through class name?
Indirectly.
Either directly
Or indirectly.
or indirectly with
Using
class,
class
right?
name.
Using the class name.
Either directly or with the
Class name.
using
Class name.
class name. Inside the instance method, how can I access the static variables and methods?
Same, sir. I directly or using the class name.
Yes, either directly or using with the class name. This is common point in instance and static method. Only the difference is inside the static methods, instance will be called with the class object creation. Inside the instance method, instance will call directly. Okay, now for your reference, I was giving in chat box. Please save it, friends. 1 second. I shared in the chat box. Please copy it, friends. Copy it. Yeah. And friends, now everyone know that. Just to see the difference, what I'm saying that instance variable, static variable, color are the same. Of course, in my system it is blue color. In your system, water color is. You imagine that. Instance variable X, static variable C name, both are same color or not? Huh? Yes.
Yes.
Variable color, local variable Y color is what is different to the instance and static. Observe, friends. Huh? Keep in your mind. Keep in your mind now, friends. Now, instance variable X 100 is there. Local variable also I'm maintaining X equal to 200, and I was printing X. Now tell me which X value is coming now?
Local variable within the
200.
method.
200.
Friends, the color of that local variable both are same, right, friends? See,
Yes.
if I control click on this X, it goes to the local variable X. Suppose if I not having local variable X 200, then where this X goes, friends? Instance X 100, right? See, control click. Then in instance and local, both are having the same variables. Always it prefers to take the local variable X value only. See, friends, understanding?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If only one is there, first it goes to the instance. If local also is there means first it takes the priority as a local X. Okay. Everyone know that when instance local having the same means local is the first priority. Even though I want to access the instance variable X 100 only. In that case, what to do? Directly we use this dot keyword, this dot X. Understanding, friends?
Yes, sir.
This dot is a keyword which refers the current class instance variables. This dot is a keyword which refers the current class instance variables. X is instance variable or not? Yes. See now,
Yes, sir.
X is
Yes.
this dot X is referring to where instance variable X 100. Normal X is referring to where local variable X 200. Understanding the difference? So inside
Yes,
the
sir.
instance method, we can call instance variable either directly X like this or this dot X. The xn calling means local X is coming, local X value. This dot xn calling means it is taking the instance X value. Understanding, friends?
Sir, what are the real-time scenarios like we will use the same variable as a local and instance variable?
See, based on your needs, sir. You want instance means use the this dot X. If you want local means use the X based on your needed. Based on your usage, you'll call that. Getting, sir? Understanding?
Yes, sir.
So it is based on your requirements, sir. You want local means you directly call X, sir. If you want instance variable means call this dot X. If both names are same.
Sir,
Understanding?
if the both names are different, we can use this dot X.
Not required. See, here it is X is there, it is having Y is there. Then why go like this? We'll take local variables only here, right? Directly Y we call, right?
Okay. No need of this dot X now.
No, not required. When
Just
these
X.
two are same, when these two are same, always refer to the local variable first prior. Then it goes to the
Okay.
instance. Yes.
Thank
Got
you.
it.
You got it, sir.
And instance local both having same variable names always takes priority as a local one only. Even if you want instance, still you want this instance, then we give this dot X, inst dot X. It will take X100. See this local normal X is taking the 200. This dot X, I'm control clicking on it, it goes to the instance X100 value. Understanding this? So that's it. The primitive variable defining in these three positions. Is everyone clear?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Access all those
Yes, sir.
things.
Yes.
Now I will demonstrate now. So non-primitive or reference variable can be defined only in these two positions, static and local positions. One of the friend asked in class reference can access any. Now your doubt will be clarified here. Okay, non-primitive or reference means what? Class objects. Where we're creating class objects inside the static methods, right, friends? Right. So this reference variable can be defined in the static and local. Friends, now see here. Reference variable means what? Any class object creation. Here obj is called class reference variable. Class reference. This class reference. Friends, this obj is local to this. This class reference is local to this M2, right? This class reference I can use only here, right?
Yes.
This
Yes.
class reference I can use only here, right? This is called local
Yes.
class reference. This reference can't be used here. This reference can't be used here. When the class object created in this method, this reference can be used only within this method premises. This class reference can be used only within this method premises. Okay, reference variable in local. And now, how many references I was creating in this method? Here one. Here is a one. Reference is same I'm using, right? Why can't I make this as a common class reference? Yes. Then you go with a static. Where we define static here, right? Inside the class. Variable types obj. I'm making this as a static. See friends, earlier the class reference is brown, is the same color, right? Brown color. In each method, class reference is brown color. Now I declare the class reference variable in a globally as a static. Now use that reference storing that class object. See the color is changed or not? Goes to where? This one. Understanding? One reference I created as a class static reference, and I can use here, I can use here. As everyone know that instance and static anywhere I can use. Local I can use only within that method premises. Earlier the class reference I declared only in the method, it can be used only in that method. Here also only in this method, but I made this as a global, as a static, which the same reference I was using in this method commonly being used. This reference memory allocates only once, and it can make use in this M2. It can make use in this main method. Memory allocates only once for this obj because it is a static. As I said the rule, when we go with static means when it is being commonly being used, that kind of variables we go with the statics, whether primitive static or reference static, whatever it is. Memory will be allocating for this and this only once. How many times we call this? The memory is sharing. Here obj memory sharing here, same memory sharing here instead of creating two memories. Earlier Local one memory, here local one memory. Two memories are allocating, right, friends? Understanding? Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that is what. So here, this is the small statement we have discussed a lot. See here, there are basically two types of variables. One is primitive variable and second is non-primitive or reference variable. Again, this primitive, non-primitive are furtherly divided to three types based on the position of declaration and behavior. We define this primitive and reference variable in these three positions. I shown you everyone practically. Is everyone clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, we will talk about data types and its default values. Data types and its default values. Friends, in Java, every variable should be declared with some data type before it is in a used. Otherwise, it gives as a compile time error. Okay, let me create one separate class for this. Data types. X equals to some 100. Friends, why I'm getting the error?
Because it's not declared.
Not declared any.
Yes, AX cannot be resolved to the type. It is expecting to give the type data type. It is of type integer because the object is what the integer object
Value is
storing into
integer
the
of-
X variable of type integer type. So every object having respect to type, strictly we have to give the data type. Even if I give, I'm giving ch equals a something. I'm getting even error here because why? It is a what type? Character type. So every object will be storing into one variable of type of object type. So data type is a must. Strictly giving the data type is called as a static declaration. Mustly, strictly to give the data type for every variable. That kind of declaration is called static declaration. Some of the languages not required to give that data type, simply variable equal to object, variable equal to object. That kind of declaration is called dynamic declaration. Tell me some examples: static declaration and dynamic declarations. Yes. Your example: C language, C++, Java, C#. Any of these programming languages without giving data types, is any variable is defined? All right, friends. Strictly we have to give the data type. Some scripting languages like Java scripting, Python, Ruby, Scala, PHP, like these scripting languages, not required to give this data type. Simply there we can use variable equals to object like this. Let me show you. I'm having Python installed in my computer. Let me show you. IDLE Python. See, in a Python is a scripting language. You're not required to give the data type. Directly variable equal to object we can store. That kind of declaration is called dynamic declarations. Okay, see here, X equals to some 100 is taken out. But when I was giving in Java program, data type is a must. But here in the Python, not required. Printer means 100 is printing. So what is the type of this X means? Let me show you. Printer
Type of.
type of X is what? Class type. Integer. In all scripting languages, every data type will be of type class type. In programming languages, the data type will be the primitive type. Understanding, friends? In every programming languages, strictly we have to give the data type. That's called static declaration. Okay, na? These all static declarations, all the primitive data types. Like this, we have so many primitive data types are there. 8 primitive data types are there. Okay, na? The see, friends. In Java, every variable should be declared with some data type before it is in a use. Otherwise, it gives a compile time error. I shown you, right, friends? Yes. See, simple to understand you. This is an object, primitive object. This is a primitive variable. This is a primitive data type. But this is a class type in scripting languages. But in programming languages, we call it a primitive data type. In scripting languages, this is of type class type. Dynamically, it is declaring there. Understanding, friends? Here in programming language, statically, data type is a must give. That is a primitive data type. Now, see, friends. So the data type specifies the amount of memory. Every data type, integer having some amount of memory to store the objects. Character is having some amount of memory to store the character objects. Okay, the data type specifies the amount of memory that should be reserved for that variable to hold some values or objects. Understanding? Okay, now? Yes, int a equal to 10. Yes, 10 is a primitive object and a is a primitive variable. Int is a primitive data type. Likewise, we have 8 primitive data types. Like this, we have 8 primitive data types are there in Java. They are called as a primitive data types. See here, 8. What are the 8? 6 as a numeric data types and 2 as a non-numeric. These 8 are classified into 2 types. One is 6 as a numeric data types. 2 are a non-numeric data types. Again, these 6 numerics are furtherly classified into 2 parts. One is the integer data types as a 4 and floating point data type as a 2. Okay, na? Total 4 plus 2 plus 2 is a 8 data types are there. 8 data types are there. Total 8 are there. So here, what are the 4 integral? See, everything is integer values which don't have any decimal values. No dot values will be there in integer. So like this, we have integer data types as a 4, byte, short, int, long. Every integer type having its own range and size in storing the objects of integers. And floating, next to 2 are the floating. What are the 2? Float and double, which have some decimal values. Even floating and double having its own size and range to store the floating objects. And coming to the 2 non-numeric are Boolean and char. Boolean will return the true or false, that in a lowercase, not zeros and ones. It returns true or false, that in a lowercase. These are the 8 primitive data types. Let's see friends, every data type having a range and size. The range will be starting from negative value to the positive value range will be there for every integer or floating, whatever it was. Negative to positive range will be there and having some size also to store the objects. See friends, now first I go with a byte. We have integral 4, right? Integer 4 type are there. One is a byte. I'm giving back. The range is minus 128 is the negative value. And pause, and if I give exceed the range minus 128, it will exceed the range. Starting negative value minus 128 is the starting negative value. And positive value is plus 127 is the positive value. If I give 128, it exceeds. So minus 128 to plus 127 is the range for this byte. That's it. In this only we have to store the objects, the range. The size is the 1 byte. Okay, na? Next is a short. The range is minus 30,767. 768 is the range. Minus 32,768 is the range, negative value. If I give 769 means it exceeds the range. This is the negative range. And positive range is 32,767 is the positive range. Minus 32,782 plus 32,767 is the range. And the size is that every data type having its own range and size. Like int. It's also having everything I have given here for your information, friends. So byte, okay. So I'm giving you wide range and size for that everything. Okay, na? But short 2 bits is the range. For integer 4 bytes, and this is the negative positive range like this. Okay, na? The size is 4 bytes. Next is the long, also having some range and size is the 8 bytes. And this all comes under the integer data type, right? Next is what? Floating type, right? Floating type. What are they floating? Float and double is that. Float. Friends, when I was declaring the float object, I'm getting some error. If any error comes, just mouse over and watch it. Type mismatch. Cannot convert from double to the float. So by default, the object is treating as a double type. If you want to treat this as a float type object, okay, then lastly we must use the F character either in a lowercase or in an uppercase to convert this object as a float type object. Okay, na? By default, the float objects are treated as a double type. To represent this as a float type, and lastly you give the F character either in a lowercase or in a uppercase. The size is the 4 bytes. And next is the double. So the size is the, for double type, we not required to give the D character in the ending, either lowercase or uppercase. Even if we give also doesn't matter. But when declaring the float object, strictly you must give the F character in the ending to represent this object as a float type object. Otherwise, by default, takes as a double type. Okay, now. So these all comes under the what? The numeric data type. See, friends. See here, numeric 6 are there, 4 as an integer and 2 as a floating. Is done right? Numeric 6. Now non-numeric are what? Boolean and cat type. Which character will be representing in a single quote, having a 2 bytes of size. And next is what? Boolean. Here it takes not zeros. No, it will not take a zeros and ones. 0 ones is taking a
Either
no.
true or false.
Taking true or false, that in a lowercase, not uppercases. Not uppercases. It will take true or false. For this Boolean, there is no size, there is no range for this Boolean. Okay, na? These all are the primitive data types. Here, every primitive data type is starting with the lowercase. Understanding, friends? But where in Python, friends, it is treating int as a class type. In scripting languages, the data types are by default as a class types. But in programming languages, these are the primitive types. Every primitive type starts with a lowercase. Okay, na? Now, if I want the string objects to store, what I do? String str. But string is not a primitive type, it's a class. Why, you know, right? Every class starts with uppercase. Yes or no? Yes, friends. Every
Yes.
class.
Yes, sir.
Here, string is a class. The string class represents character string. See, character strings. Each character group of characters is made as a string. The string object. The string is a class. It's not a primitive data type. Where these are the 8 primitive types. Where string is a class. Now tell me, friends, all these variables are instance variables are static variables are or local variables are
Instance variable.
Instance
Now,
variable.
inside the static method, how I access the instance variables?
True object reference.
True object.
class
True
object.
Class object, correct. new data types of first is byte concatenation. What is that? Sorry, obj dot b byte icon. Okay. This out. Next is what? Short concatenation with obj dot
Yes.
short. So, this out. This is what? Concatenation obj dot I. Next is what? Long. Obj dot L. Next floats we want to call. Sys out float concatenation obj dot F. Sys out. Next we are calling the double obj dot D. Next what we call character H. Next we call what? Boolean, right? Boolean. We call obj dot B. And I want to call a string, right? So this out obj dot str, right?
Yeah.
So what is the output now comes? What we have assigned the objects, that is giving us the output. See here, if I run this program, see byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, boolean, string. What are the objects I initialize? That objects are printing. Because I have initialized the objects, those are printing. Friends, if I'm not initializing anything, just I declare the variables, just byte b, that's it. Short s, only I'm declaring, I'm not initializing. If I initialize some objects, means that variable is initialized. If I only declare the variable, means that's variable declaration, that's it. Just I'm not initializing anything, just I'm declaring the only the variables. Now what will be the output, friends? Now, what will be the
Same
output now?
Default
default
values
value.
also.
Default values. So every variable have a data type. The every data type will have its own default values. If I'm not initializing anything, respect to variable type, default values will be the on. What is the default values? Means byte, short, int, long, or the integer numbers. Where integers will not have any decimal values. Yes or no, friends?
Yes.
Integer values. We don't have any decimal values. So a byte, short, int, long gives the default value as a 0. And coming to the float and double, it gives the default value as a 0.0. 0.0. And for character, it gives as a space.
Yes.
And for it gives as a default value as a false. String is a class. Any class default value gives as a null. Understanding? String is a class. For any class, default value is a null. For Boolean, default value is a false. For character is a, for float and double 0.0. For byte, short, int, long gives as a 0 as a default values. See if I run this program, see if same is given, right? Okay, now if I'm not initializing anything, it will take its respect to type default values. Everyone clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now,
Yes.
next, friends, these all are instance variables. Or static variables are
Instance variable.
Instance
Start
variable.
Instance variable.
instance.
Instance variable.
No static, right? All are instance, right? Yeah. Now, same I'm going with the string company.
Static variable.
These two are the static variables, right, friends? How can I call the static variables inside the static method, friends?
Directly.
Directly or
Directly or class them, right? Yes. Okay. Directly I can call or only class them. Now, friends, for static variables, I didn't define any objects, right, friends? As like instance variable, how I not initialize anything. A similar way for static variables also, I didn't initialize anything. What is the values we can expect here now? Output for these two.
Null and 0.0.
null?
Yes, because string is a class. The string class default, the very class default value is null. Float is a default value 0.0. Yes. Now if I run this program, the same. For CNAME use as a null because that is a string there. Rate of interest is a float type, default value 0.0. Now what about local variables? Local variables where we define method or not? Huh? Local variables or friends, how we call local variables, friends? How we call local variables? Directly, right,
Directly.
friends?
Direct.
We call directly. So what we have initialized that object is giving as a 100. Okay. Now, if I'm not initializing, just I declare the local variable. Can I use that? Yes. Local
Yes.
variables without initializing cannot be used. The local variable x have been initialized. We have to initialize with minimum default value as 0 or greater than 0. You have to initialize. Without initializing local variables, we cannot use. But instances without initializing, we can. It will take respective type default values. For local variables, minimum default value or greater than default value, you have to initialize to make use that. Understood, friends? Is everyone clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Is everyone clear, friends? Is everyone clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
so this int x equal to 0, we can declare outside the main method also, sir, or only we have to declare
That becomes
inside
as an instance, right? If I define this outside, means outside the method, means it treats as an instance variable, right? This becomes as instance variable, not local, right? If the variable is defined inside the method, means that's treated as a local variable. If outside the method defined, means that's become instance or static, right? If I give static keyword, means this becomes as a static variable. If not, means as an instance variable.
Instance
If
variable.
this variable is inside the method, means it's a local variable.
Local variable.
Got it, sir?
Okay, sir.
Instance and static are defined inside the class, outside the method. Local variables are only inside the method. Got it?
Okay.
Okay, friends. Friends, that's it for today. Today we have discussed variable types and various positions to define the variables. And also we have seen that data types and its default values. So tomorrow we'll be talking about wrapper classes and Java inheritance. That is the agenda for the tomorrow session. After the day after tomorrow, we'll be talking about pending non-access modifiers. Pending non-access modifiers for methods and variables in the conclusion for the first document. That's it for today, friends.
Sir,
Tomorrow.
sir, hello. Sir, I have one doubt.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Sir, this videos I have not got, sir. You told you will share.
Sir, morning I have shared to someone, sir. See, I got this mail. It's actually people has paid, but till yesterday, day before yesterday, I have 5 mails only. I requested a mail team to send the pending mails. I think 5 more people has paid, I guess. Today I will expect.
Sir, I
Okay,
paid
don't worry.
fees. I paid fees last week, sir.
Who is this?
Umapati.
Sir, I am also paid.
I think. Yeah, don't
Sir,
worry,
I am
sir.
also
Still
paid.
5 has to come, sir. These are the mail IDs I received day before yesterday. I think after that some more mails are missing here. They have to send me. I requested today morning only. They said we'll send within 1 hour. Okay, today you can expect the recordings. But some
Sir,
people has
daily
to
we
receive.
have
These only
register.
people. Sorry.
Daily we have register same link, sir. Demo link in the class.
Up to this week only. Next week onwards, not required to register.
Okay.
Okay, no?
Hello?
For tracking purpose, we are having a registration for every day. From next week onwards, who have done the payments only, we'll be giving the links for them only. Okay, no?
Sir, I am also paid
Total
at
mailing.
Namaraju Kandulo.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm saying. Let's listen. Yes, 10 people has paid, sir, but I got at least only 5. The rest 5 people has to come to me. Today I will expect them. Okay, no? You also can expect recordings today.
Sir, my name
So
is in
friends,
that
can you please
list. Hello.
please check 5 people are there. Can you please confirm you received or not, first of all?
No.
Remaining people don't talk.
Yes, sir.
We'll give them. Okay, no? Don't worry.
Sir, hello.
These people's. Yes.
Sir, I have a name in that list, but I didn't get a name from person.
Is this?
Deshmukh Priya 94.
I didn't get you, madam. Can you please come again?
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes. Go ahead. Can you louder?
Sir, my name is in that list. That is Deshmukh Priya 94 @ gmail.com, but I didn't get a videos link.
Do one thing, madam. See, if you get a mail, you can. If you get in mail inbox means you see that. If not means go to the spam. Please check in spam. Otherwise, spam. If anybody not received inbox, please check in spam, friends. Please. Rest people who has done the payments, don't worry. Today you can get that because some mail IDs received. Some mail IDs they have to share me today. Can I expect the recordings? Onwards, okay, na? And day versus. Got it, madam? Yeah. Friends, everyone. Okay, na? If anybody got the videos, if not in inbox, go check in spam. Okay, na? Yeah. Remaining people, don't worry. Today you'll be get that. Okay, na? Yeah. Thank you, friends. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.